So, as a Muslim man, if you've interacted lately with your sisters, your cousins, your female family, you may have realized there is this weird phenomenon whereby Muslim women specifically are being drawn to very feminine looking men, right? Specifically K-pop, like these Korean guys who look like little babies. They're like really skinny, they do these weird dances, and most of them got like weird hair, sort of like mine, but in a little bit more gay manner, if you know what I mean? And I've really been thinking why on earth that might be. And I think I finally figured it out. It took me a while, but I figured it out. First thing that you have to realize is that this is nothing strange. It's completely normal. The way the society is function, the generation that comes after another one will be attracted to the opposite things that the previous generation was attracted to. For example, generations before ours family, so our family before them, they were a little bit loose. And naturally, the next generation was attracted to masculine men. Because think about this, right? If all men are just really, really like weak and very, very unsteady, and things get chaotic, which they did, now people will naturally start looking at stoic and orderly men. So obviously, our family, our parents were attracted to very orderly people, traditional women, traditional men. Now we're going to be attracted to the opposite of what they're attracted to because we've seen so much order and we've seen how boring it can get. Like as masculine men, right? Like it's cool. Like it's obviously an attractive thing to be masculine in every single way. But when you get really toxic and you get really abusive, you get angry all the time about small things, they've seen the ugliest parts of a masculine man. So now when they grow a little bit older, it's integrated in their mind. They think about abuse, they think about toxic masculinity on all this BS. They're going to look for men who don't have those traits, who are more or less harmless. Another example of this was back in the USA. I don't remember what year, 1960s, 80s, when everybody just went completely loose. The generation before that was extremely orderly. It was men who went to war. It was really stoic, like, when I mean like traditional American men who carry like shotguns and stuff like that. And then all of a sudden, all the kids, all the women just decided to break loose. So if you were around in like 80s or 60s, obviously I wasn't, but if you're around during those times in the West, you could literally just go out and you would see a whole ton of people just doing meth and smoking weed just outside. It's completely normal. I want to talk about this a specific person who is one of the most controversial people of all time. And when I bring him up, everyone's gonna flood me with comments. He's actually haram, you're actually a bad person. One of the most charismatic people of the last maybe like 50 years, Charles Manson. Now, if you don't know much about him, I don't blame you. You probably shouldn't. But he basically created a whole cult of women. And every single woman in that time was extremely attracted to him, right? The thing with Charles Manson, he lived most of his life in jail, so he had no interaction with the outside world. And when he came out, all the men were masculine. They were like stoic. At least they tried to be, right? Except for those hippies and crackheads, but they're crackheads, so they don't count. But Charles Manson was a competent, charismatic person who was at the same time very loose because he was in jail and he was able to create his own persona instead of being influenced by the society. So he comes out and he starts talking to these women in a way that's extremely open and loose, like complete openness to the whole universe. His brain was just open and they loved it. I'm not telling everyone to become Charles Manson. He's crazy. But there are some things, as I say, no matter how bad someone is, whether it's Hitler, whether it's Charles Manson, murderer, I don't care. There's something you can learn from everyone. All these influences, like Hamza, like Andrew Tate, they tell you to be fully masculine because that's the only thing that's going to get you women, success, and everything else in life. But because of that, a lot of Muslim men these days have this thing against femininity. They're like, femininity, that's disgusting. I have to stay away from that. A man can't be feminine. And you're 100% right. Or are you? Femininity in itself can actually be a really good thing if you do it right. What I'm saying is you need to have a little bit of femininity to yourself. When I say this, I'm not saying you have to go home and cry every time something bad happens to you or, be undecisive or what you want to eat. Femininity is strategy. Femininity is reading into people. That's why 80% of people who study psychology are women. There's very little men in there. On top of that, if you look at any famous strategist, think of someone like Napoleon. or a few others, I don't remember their names, you'll notice that they're all very, very feminine in their traits, like the way they walk. Like if you see a photo of Napoleon, he literally looks like a K-pop artist. And he was genuinely a feminine person. Even his body was very feminine. And his relationship with his wife was absolutely nuts. Like he was literally a woman, like the way he conducted the relationship. He was extremely like into toxicity and all these strange things that we're not going to discuss because this is an Islamic channel. So Napoleon, he could think so creatively. He could read the enemy's mind. All his enemies would say he knew what we are gonna do before we did it. And that's what femininity can give you if you do it the right way. Like I'm not saying you have to become like feminine in all other aspects, but you need to embrace the best parts of femininity. And plus you have to have the masculinity to go with it. And now you're going to be a complete person. Now you're going to be able to attract women like you never thought was possible. You'll be able to read into their mind. You'll be able to evoke certain emotions. But to do that, you're going to need to get rid of this mindset that Andrew Tate, that Hamza has put inside you. Just be orderly and no self-improvement. I work out, everything's black and white. You can't be like that. Now, if you want to follow their advice, that's fine by me. Obviously, a lot of them are very successful, more successful than me with my 900 subscribers. But if you want to follow this advice, this is going to transform your life. That's all I can say. So in conclusion, how are you actually going to become more attractive to women in the 21st century? One thing you have to start doing is you have to learn to start reading into people. Us men, we don't like doing that because it gets super detailed. But you need to study some psychology, like basic psychology, just learn it. Now, if you find this message helpful, if you got any value out of it, I encourage you to subscribe to my channel. These are the sort of videos that I make on here. We're all a bunch of Muslim men trying to become the best versions of ourselves.